Dear teachers, welcome to JS in English Learning. We are with Unit 7 of PGTRB. We are discussing the poems of Nizzim Ezekiel from 10 20th century Indian poets, edited by R. Parthasarathi. And now we are going to discuss the poems of Nizzim Ezekiel. And what is special about Nizzim Ezekiel? Nizzim Ezekiel is considered to be the father of post-independence Indian poetry in English, and the family, Ezekiel's family, Nizzim Ezekiel. They belong to Mumbai's Marathi-speaking Jewish community known as Bene Israel. So Nizzim Ezekiel is basically from the Jewish minority in India. You know, Jewish people, they are from the Western world, and the Westerners, they have settled in India. So this man belongs to the Anglo-Indian community, and this man by religion is a Jew, and a Marathi-speaking Jewish community in India. They are basically settled in Mumbai, and the name of this community is very important. It is called Bene Israel. Bene Israel means good. So good Israelites. Now, what are the various aspects that we find in Nizzim Ezekiel? The different dimensions of the personality. There's a very dynamic personality. He was a very prolific writer, a playwright, a critic, a broadcaster, and a social commentator. He was born on December 24th, 1924, and we have some informations like his father was a botanist, and the mother was the principal of her own school. And as a young man, Nizzim Ezekiel was very fond of poets like T.S. Eliot, who was modernist, Yeats, who was very much interested in mysticism and in symbolism, and then Ezra Pound, who was very much inclined towards the movement called imagism. So all these people very much shaped the poet called Nizzim Ezekiel. And what type of language did Nizzim Ezekiel use in his poetry? He was using, highly simplified English to suit to the Indian audience. And it is stated of Nizzim Ezekiel that he presented the Indianness of India in his poetry. The India which is presented by him was down to earth. It presented all the elements of what India is. Okay, it was a pen portrayal of how India was. It was a very picturesque and clear presentation. Okay, now what are the poems that he wrote? His first collection of poetry was titled Time to Change, which was published by Fortune Press London in the year 1952. And then you find that there are other positions which he adorned. What are the positions he adorned? He joined the Illustrated Weekly of India as an assistant editor in 1953. And then you find that he published two other volumes of poetry. The next volume is called 60 Poems, followed by The Unfinished Man. And then the most famous poem, however, what is anthologized much is The Night of the Scorpion. Then we find as an art critic, he served the Times of India, that particular magazine, between 1964 to 66. And then he served as the editor of the Poetry India between 1966 to 67. And he was also the co-founder of a literary monthly titled Imprint. And the literary contribution of this great man teachers, kindly hold on. Right. Teachers, we're speaking about Ezekiel's the honors that were received by Nizzim Ezekiel. His literary contribution was so great that the government of India honored him with Padma Shri Award in 1988, and then he was awarded Sahitya Academy Award in 1983. And this great man passed away on July 9, 2004. To summarize the major works of Nizzim Ezekiel, what are the major poetry collections? The first one is Time to Change. In the year 1952, it was published. Then 60 poems published in 1953. The third one was the Unfinished Man in 1960. Then there was a collection titled The Exact Name in 1965. Then the three plays, published in 1969. And then there was another collection titled Sankazin and Other Poems, which was a translation of the Marathi poet Indra Sant, which was published in 1974. Okay. And another collection appeared in Hymns in Darkness, 1976. Okay. Okay. So there was a question as to when Nizzim Ezekiel passed away. He passed away on January 9, 2004. I think there must be a slip of tongue there. Okay. And then there are two other collections. One is Letter Day Psalms in 1982 and Collected Poems. The poems which were written between 1952 to 1988 appeared as one volume in the year 1989. So these are a short bio note about the author. Now we have the poem which is prescribed from this collection. What is the collection? The Unfinished Man. The first poem, which is anthologized by R. Parthasarathi in 10-20th century Indian poets, is titled Enterprise. And this poem was taken from the poetry collection, The Unfinished Man, which was published in 1960. Now, what is the title of the poem? Look at the title. The title of the poem is Enterprise. What is the meaning of the word enterprise? Enterprise means, a new plan, a project, or the beginning of a new business. That is the meaning of the word enterprise. A new beginning, a new beginning of something. That is how you need to understand the title in the context of the content which is given to us. You need to read the poem in full and then understand the meaning. The general meaning is a new plan, a new project, a new business, like that. But in the context of the poem, the meaning of enterprise is a new beginning, the beginning of a nation called India. So the author Nizzim Ezekiel is speaking about the various stages of the nation called India, how the nation called India evolved from time immemorial. ஆதிகாலம் தொட்டு இன்றைய நாள் வரையிலும் எந்தெந்த ஸ்டேஜ இந்தியா கடந்து வந்திருக்கிறது அப்படிங்கறத பத்தி ஒரு போயம் அழகா எழுதியிருக்கார். Did you get that, teachers?
Yes, sir.
And it is considered to be a beautiful symbolic poem. Enterprise அப்படிங்கிற இந்த போயம் பாத்தீங்கன்னா, it is a symbolic poem. It speaks about how India evolved from the rudiments. ஆதி காலத்துல it was in the beginning stage, and how it came to be what it is today. When we say today, we have to understand that term in the context of the time in which the poem was written. Nizzim Ezekiel காலம் வரையிலும் how India evolved, what are the various stages அப்படிங்கிறது. Now let's begin the poem. It started as a pilgrimage. India, the beginning of India was like that of a pilgrimage. There was a group of people who wanted to shape a nation. So they began to travel in the spiritual plane. அவங்கள பத்தி சொல்லும் பொழுது the whole journey began as a pilgrimage to make a spiritual domain. So he is speaking about the Vedic era, which was the first time period in Indian history. Vedic era, the beginnings of India. And what was the nature of people? The nature of the people, the mindset of the people was exalted minds. People were highly spiritual minded, and they envisioned a nation with spiritual values, with religious values. Okay, so they envisioned to have a sovereign state. கடவுளை தலைவராக கொண்ட ஒரு சாவரின் ஸ்டேட்டை எஸ்டாப்ளிஷ் பண்ணணும் அப்படிங்கிற முயற்சியில these architects were working together. Okay, they put a lot of efforts making all the burdens light. Because they were the pioneers, so they felt the burden on their shoulder in the process of creating a nation. And who were the first architects? Religious people and spiritual sages. Religious men and the spiritual gurus were the ones who were undergoing a pilgrimage in the process of constructing a nation. And the nation that they envisioned was a sovereign state, a state in which God was the guiding force. Did you get that, teachers?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when God was the guiding force, it was the spiritual force, but they needed rulers. So rulers came to take the job of maintaining law and order in the country. And there were many kings who acted as a representative of the divine. So after monarchy came the colonial regime. That is the second stage of India, the defining stage of India, a very important stage in the development of the nation called India, a very important phase. And it's called the colonized phase. The second stage, okay, explored but did not test the call. That means people were put to test. It is a testing time. What was the testing time for Indians? The colonial phase was the testing time for them. The sun beat down to match our rage, which means the sun, the land of the rising sun is Britain. Britain came down heavily upon the Indians. East India Company came to India in the early 16th century, and it entered into India by terms of trade, but then it started establishing its hold in India and later became the ruling power in India. Okay, when we were colonized, there was rage inside us to fight back. Okay, there were various efforts which were taken by Indians to free themselves, but still they couldn't free themselves. Did you understand that, teachers? During the colonial rule, what happened? We were made slaves. Human beings were bought and sold like, okay, bought and sold like objects in the market. Okay, that condition, we were completely reeling under slavery. Till even then, a nation called India was aspiring to be a free nation. It wanted to evolve as a nation by itself. Now, look at the symbol that is used here. The way of the serpents and the goats. What is this way of the serpents and the goat? Okay, we, the British men, that is an allusion to the Bible. In the Bible, you know, the serpents, what is the serpent in the Bible? Who is the serpent?
Saturn.
Serpent. Satan, in the form of serpent, was enticing Eve to eat the forbidden fruit. Similarly, the British government in India was attracting Indians to join the fold, to be its slave forever. What is the author trying to say? The government was trying to introduce English education to Indians. And the purpose of English education is to create intermediaries between the colonial regime and the colonized people. They wanted to have stronghold in India. They wanted to understand the people of India. So they wanted to educate the creamy layer in India. And some Indians, they fell prey to it. And after falling prey to it, they realized their flaw and they turned against the colonizer by learning English language. Look at the way Nizzim Ezekiel is subtly giving all this information. And he is speaking about Lord Macaulay's minutes. You remember Lord Macaulay's minutes teaches a very important milestone in making English the lingua franca of India. It became the official language of India. And that made a very great impact in Indian education system because English was made the language of higher education in India. And there was a recommendation made by Lord Macaulay, later by Wood. Okay, Wood Dispatch. There is a Wood Dispatch, and Wood Dispatch made a recommendation to start universities in India in 3 important provinces, where the 3 cities which were once a great place where Mahatma Gandhiji touched. The same 3 places were actually the stronghold for the British regime in India. What are the 3 strongholds for the British regime? Madras, Bombay, and Calcutta was the important places where British government have their strongholds. Okay, and in these places, the British government tried to establish itself very firmly by starting universities, modeled upon the universities in Britain. இங்கேயும் universities start பண்ணாங்க, and they started educating Indians using English language. When they taught English language, they were also trying to enforce the English way of life and the English religion. Did you get that, teachers?
Yes, sir.
ஏன் எடுத்தது பாருங்க, ரொம்ப அழகான விஷயம். அப்படியே போகும்போதே அவர் என்ன சொல்றாரு? He is going to speak of how India tried to free itself from the clutches of the Great Britain. என்ன அப்படின்னா, there was a sage who taught against oppression, who fought for freedom, who voiced the rights of Indians. Who was this great sage? The great sage was Mahatma Gandhi. He addressed people in Madras, he addressed in Bombay, he addressed in Calcutta, and he consolidated the people of India with his spiritual power. And he led the people of India against the British regime. And when the government was about to hand over the governance of India to Indians, there was a man who was breaking away from India. Who was that man? Muhammad Ali Jinnah. We lost a friend whose stylish prose was quite the best of all our batch. So the author is referring to that particular great man who wanted to separate India from Pakistan. Okay, so that was there. And then at that point of time, there was another phase, the phase of independence. There was 2 important events. With the independence of India in 1947, there was also the partition of Pakistan from India. And you know, what are the things that happened during the partition? Okay, there was a communal riots in that accompanied the partition of India into India and Pakistan. So the author is speaking about the independent phase And what happened during the partition of India? And he was speaking about how there was communal rights which was unleashed. And then he also speaks about the aftermath of independence. What happened after independence? India as a nation was twice attacked by very close comrades. Who are the close comrades of India who attacked India? The first one is China, which attacked India in 1962. The other one was by Pakistan in the year 1965. Because of this, India was completely shaken because India never expected such attacks from friends and brothers. Did you get that, teachers?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that was the condition. Okay, அதற்கப்புறம் பாத்தீங்கன்னா ரொம்ப முக்கியமானது என்னன்னா the third phase is the phase of Indian independence and its development. After these two attacks, India was slowly trying to develop itself, but there was one great problem that India was facing with. What is that great problem? It is population explosion. There was a great population explosion, and there was a lot of development plan. 5-year plans were there. Then there was other development projects, but nothing could help India, which was becoming overpopulated. Okay, and India was suffering from the inability to face the basic needs. Though there were many difficulties, India reached the final phase. Okay, so the pilgrims, after undergoing all this journey, they reached a final phase. These phases were the phases of trials and tribulations. They reached the final phase, according to the poet, but the trip had darkened every phase. Okay. Our deeds were neither great nor rare. Our deeds were quite common, but he says, home is where we have to gather grace. We must be happy being in home. You cannot go elsewhere and gather grace. Home is the best place. So, whatever be the difficulty, okay, you need to stay with your nation. Now, look at the poem. Okay, enterprises. When you read this poem by Nizzim Ezekiel, he is speaking about the journey of aspiring Indians to make a nation called India. You cannot forget a similar poem written by T.S. Eliot. Do you remember that poem, teachers, where T.S. Eliot speaks about the journey?
Wasteland.
Is it Wasteland that has a similar thematic? You have three people going on a journey. The journey of the Magi. The journey of the Magi, where it's a Christian theme, where three Magi from three different places, they go in search of the newborn baby called Jesus, who is supposed to be the Messiah of the world or the King of Kings of the world. And in the course of journey, they undergo different phases. At last, they go and see the face of Jesus, and they forget all the previous trials and tribulations, and they become completely a changed person because of the encounter they have with Jesus. Similarly, the same kind of pilgrimage concept is attempted by Nizzim Ezekiel, but he is speaking about the encounter that you're going to have with a nation called India. And now you know how Nizzim Ezekiel was influenced by T.S. Eliot. Did you get that concept, teachers?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now we have completed one poem, and we will break here for 5 minutes.